Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Amma ba'du fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa'budu rabbaka hatta ya'tiyaka al-yaqeen. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Welcome to all those joining us now. We find ourselves in the month of Shawwal and in the season of Hajj. And as we move out of Ramadan on the one hand and towards an easing of lockdown on the other, it's important for us to take account of where we are and to ensure that we do not squander the efforts of the past month, and that we ensure that our daily routines include our priorities of deen as well. So as we sort of enter into this session, you can send in your questions, inshallah, if you have any important questions which you feel we can help you with, and we'll see what we can do, inshallah, to address those questions. Ji.
First question, how do we keep up our good habits after the buzz of Ramadan has gone?
How do we keep up our good habits after the buzz of Ramadan has gone? The Salaf would anticipate the coming of Ramadan for half the year, and they would grieve its passing for the remaining half of the year. So you can get a sense of how their whole year revolved around Ramadan. Shaykh Zakaria rahimahullah ta'ala was so intensely occupied with Ramadan that he would do nothing else during this month besides worship. And we're talking about a man who was so busy that he would have bags of post to deal with queries which came in writing, and his letters are published in many, many volumes, and these will be instantly dictated. And this is separate from the books that he would write and the lectures of hadith which he would deliver and the gatherings of spirituality, dhikr, tasawwuf that would be held and so forth. But in Ramadan, the whole focus would be on ensuring that every moment in Ramadan was used to its maximum. And this is the case with many other mashayikh. And this is because of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. If we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's own seerah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by any estimation, was very, very busy. His responsibilities from Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Ta'ala mentions this in the Quran, إِنَّ لَكَ فِي النَّهَارِ سَبْحًا طَوِيلًا in Surah Muzammil. The Prophet's daily engagement was intense, and his work. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ irreversibly turned the world around for the better in a short period of 23 years. 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina Munawwara, or thereabouts. And its ripples continue to benefit us today. So such a person who's responsible for passing on this message of Allah to the whole of humanity till the day of Qiyamah, who's writing to kings and leaders of countries and to the leaders of clans, and who is working at home and away. He's traveling, the Prophet's famous, eventful journey to Taif. Why was it? Was it to gain support for the work of deen after Abu Talib passed away in Makkah Mukarramah? So the Prophet ﷺ is performing i'tikaf in the masjid in the last 10 days of Ashra virtually every single year. The 1 year that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do this i'tikaf was made up for later. So the Prophet ﷺ's engagement, and it wasn't just a case of being engaged in the worship of Allah. We learn from the ahadith that the Prophet ﷺ virtually never slept in Ramadan. And he would wake up his family to engage in ibadah and worship. And he would encourage the Sahaba, so many narrations encourage the seeking of Laylatul Qadr. And to make it very apparent that the Prophet ﷺ is busy in seclusion, occupied in the ibadah and worship of his Creator, the Turkish canopy, the khayma Turkiya, would be put up. This is the basis for the sunnah, in which in masajid we see curtains put up to give seclusion for the worshipper. So the Prophet ﷺ is exclusively engaged with Allah. And we'll learn in the hadith that he would virtually never sleep in the month of Ramadan, neither in the day nor in the night. So this gives us an idea of the intensity of this occasion. And what happens is the barakah of Ramadan, it preserves a person's iman. Now, it's our own weakness and shortcoming, isn't it, that the moment Ramadan is over, we begin to completely abandon all the good habits which we've established during this month. And that's reckless and it's harmful to ourselves. So what's important is that just as when Ramadan comes, we review our timetable, people take time off work, and people take time off for i'tikaf, and the routines change. Extra time is devoted to the recitation of the Quran, time is taken out for the nighttime qiyam and tarawih prayer. And all in all, there's a complete change of circumstances at home, in the masajid. So it's appropriate and apt to do exactly the same thing in Shawwal, to see where we are, and rather than just letting things rest for another 11 months, it's appropriate to take account of where we are and what we can continue. So the purpose of the qualities gained in Ramadan, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, is so that they stay with us. We join, as the Mufassirin say, the ranks of the muttaqeen. So those aspects of piety which we were able to simulate in the month of Ramadan in our lives, emanate, they should to emulate, they should be continued in the month of Shawwal. So it's about timetabling. Now on this note, a couple of points. Our fard prayer is an obvious one which needs to be continued, but the recitation of the Quran is another, should be an obvious one. It's one that is abandoned after Ramadan. So the huquq and rights of the kalam of Allah Azza wa Jal, that it should be recited outside of Ramadan too. And there are two particular benefits I'd like to mention of individual dhikr, your daily tasbih. One is that, as the Hadith Qudsi says, a person continues to get closer to Allah through nafl ibadah, which includes these nafl adhkar. You don't cease to get close to Allah by doing nafl ibadah. So closeness to Allah, wilaya, friendship with Allah, is based on nafl ibadah, bin nawafil. This is one point. And the second point, which is more substantial than the first to my mind and my understanding, and Allah knows best, is that if you're going to get close to Allah, you're not going to lose your iman on the path of getting close to Allah. And what I mean by this is your nafl ibadah may be the aspect which preserves your iman. And this is why it's incredibly important to keep putting sort of some oil into the lamp. We're talking about the heart here. Keep the flame burning, the iman, the light, the lamp needs to keep glowing. And this is done when the ruh of the person continues to receive its food. So this flickering light becomes a bit stronger and it can endure the storms of this dunya and of the tests of it and of day-to-day life. So to summarize then, what I've said, in addition to our fard prayer, we must do some nafl ibadah, including some tilawah and some zikr, and we need to think about our timetable and how we might use our times. And if people tend to do well when it's about a positive habit, and this is related to anything. If you want to add some aspect to your life to improve as self-improvement, personal improvement, what do? You try to make a habit, and if you connect one habit with another, it tends to stick. So this is why if you do your adhkar after salah, after your salah, your 5 times daily salah, whether it's after the fard or the nawafil, the sunan, you'll find that it's easier to do. But to take time out separately may be more difficult. And that's why it's perhaps wise to do this with your tilawah and your dhikr as well. So this is just a brief point really. There's much more that could be said. But the key point here, I think, is that we start thinking about this, if we haven't already, about how to ensure that we continue some of those good habits during the month of Shawwal.
How do we know we've done well in Ramadan and we're doing well spiritually?
How do we know we've done well in Ramadan and we're doing well spiritually? Well, we don't, but we can hope that we've done well. Some of the Salaf, they would say that the fact that you've read your Dhuhr is, inshaAllah, a source of hope that Allah Ta'ala has accepted your Fajr, and therefore He's called you back to His court. And you performed Asr gives you hope that your Dhuhr will have been accepted. So it's about having hope in the mercy of Allah. It's not about the quality of our ibadah. It's about the fact that we hope from Allah's mercy that He will have accepted despite our shortcomings. And so the ability to continue is a good sign. The ability to continue is a good sign. And of course, Iman lies between hope and fear. So it's a balance of the two. So we ought to be hopeful that our a'mal are accepted, and fearful that they might be rejected. Ji.
How do we get close to the Prophet ﷺ with our busy day-to-day lifestyles?
How do we get close to the Prophet ﷺ with our busy day-to-day lifestyles? Our busyness, at the point at which we can recognize that our day-to-day routines are not at odds with our deen, we make a huge leap forward. From our shuyukh, Shaykh Abdul Qadir Raipuri rahimahullah ta'ala, what he would say to those of his murids who were working people was that in addition to your fard prayer, when you set out of the house in the morning, make the intention, when you go out to work, make the intention that I'm doing this because it's an obligation, it's a faridah to earn halal income. And he would tell this to his murids, this would be his prescription, as a wird, as a wazifa, as an ibadah. Because the Prophet said, "Talabu kasbil halal li faridatun ba'da al-farida." The seeking of halal livelihood is an obligation after the major obligations of the Sharia. So, when you go to work with the intention of fulfilling this obligation, and solely for this reason, you're not doing it for the sake of the dunya, you're earning your halal income for the sake of Allah, because a fard is an act of worship, then it becomes full of virtue. So getting close to the Prophet ﷺ. Now, if there's something in our life which does not relate to deen, then it shouldn't be part of our life as Muslims. But there's nothing that we need to do that can't be part of our deen. And that's why our dunya becomes our deen, rather than the other way around. Our dunya becomes deen when everything we do is in line with the sunnah. So if going to work, we're talking about a busy lifestyle, if going to work is to earn halal income, then what will happen? The consequence will be that it will be to please Allah. And this will mean that every transaction we make is done in a halal way. It's done in an ethical way. How we earn and how we spend. The money that we bring home and what we do with it. Our zakah, our sadaqat, our obligations towards our family, towards relatives and so forth will be honored. Similarly, busy lifestyle, is it about family? If it's about family, then the Prophet ﷺ had family, wives, children, relatives. And so when we interact with our family, whether it's our direct family or extended family, relatives and so forth, it will be done to please Allah Azza wa Jal, because this is something which is mentioned in so much detail in the Quran and Sunnah. It's such a major part of our deen. Similarly, when we engage with society and with neighbors, it will also be in the spirit of deen. Similarly, when we do so much as go for a walk or exercise our physical bodies, it will be because this is an amana from Allah and it's a ni'mah and it has to be looked after. And so there's no part of our life in this dunya which cannot be turned into deen when it's done for the right reasons. Our mashayikh would encourage that you make multiple niyyat, intentions when you perform a single act. So for the one act that you're about to do, you can make many different intentions. So for example, if you're going to visit your parents, it could be that you're visiting your parents because they're your parents. It could be so that you can visit them in their sickness as well. There'll be a second intention, that you can do some act of service to them, 3, khidmah, on and on. So you can find various reasons, good reasons to do a particular act. And this will increase the virtue and value. So basically, the busy lifestyle is not really the problem. The problem is that the focus isn't right sometimes. So when my focus isn't right, then my busy lifestyle distracts me from Allah. But when my focus is right, then there'll be two benefits. One is that what I do will be done properly and it'll become deen. And the second point is that I'll be able to extract myself from any disproportionate focus. So for example, if my life is driven exclusively by my work at the expense of my deen and family and health, then that balance will tip the other way and my focus becomes right. So we're talking about turning our busy lifestyle into deen by changing our intention here. It doesn't mean that we have to stop doing all those things. All of it can become full of reward and virtue. Ji.
I must 4 fast due to travelling. Do I have to keep them after Eid, or can I feed the poor and do kafara?
I miss 4 fasts due to travelling. Do I have to keep them after Eid, or can I give fidya to the poor? You have to keep them. The Quran says explicitly, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, then you have to make up the number in other days. So the concession is not to give the fidya. To be clear, if you've been reading the translation of the Quran, the first verse in which fidya is mentioned as an option, the majority of the mufassirin, the jumhur, say that this verse is mansukh and abrogated by the verse after it, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. And in this verse, Allah Ta'ala says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. And then whoever is present in this month and needs to fast this month. And then Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, whoever's sick or on a journey, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, then he must make up the number from other days. And Allah Ta'ala says further in the same verse, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ, so you complete the number. So completing the number is necessary, and if you're no longer traveling, you do have to make it up after Eid. Ji.
Can you combine Qaza Roza with a Shawwal Roza?
Can you combine Qadha Roza with Shawwal Roza? No. The Qadha Roza is a fard one, and the Shawwal Roza is a nafil one. The fard takes priority over the nafil, and the intentions are separate. وَالْعِلْمُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Ji.
When you read namaz with the Jamaat, should you be reading Surah Fatiha quietly behind the Imam when it is being read out aloud?
When you're reading namaz behind the Imam, do you read Surah Fatiha quietly to yourself when it's being read aloud by the Imam?
Yeah.
Okay, basically, there's a difference of opinion in this ruling in the Ummah and in the schools of thought. And this comes from the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum. There were various views amongst the Sahaba. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, his view was that you don't. And that's the view of the Hanafi school of thought. That's the view of the Ahnaf as well. So basically, in all congregational prayers, you only recite the thana, and you only do this if you join the salah with the Imam. If there's a delay in starting and the Imam will have finished his thana, then you don't recite that either. And this is because of the verse of the Quran as well, in which Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. When the Quran is being recited, then listen carefully to it and remain silent, that you are treated with mercy. Now, listening to it, the Mufassirin say, is related to the Jahri prayers. The Mufassirin say that this verse is related to Salah. So we're talking about Fajr and Maghrib and Isha. And وَأَنصِتُوا applies in addition. Ansitu applies to the ones in which it's recited aloud, but it also applies, this applies, the ones you can't listen to the Imam reciting, Dhuhr and Asr, Ansitu, the insat still applies, and this is remaining absolutely silent, not moving your lips. So the verse, the famous hadith, La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab, there's no salah except with the Fatihatul Kitab, the opening chapter of the book. What does this hadith mean? Again, there's a difference of opinion in the interpretation of this hadith. And we need to understand that just as we can understand one verse of the Quran with another, we can understand one hadith with another. And so when we look at the whole body of a hadith, and we look at this hadith in context, the Hanafi position is that this particular hadith refers to the munfarid. It refers to the person performing salah on their own. And as for the salah in which the Imam is leading the congregation, his Fatiha, as we learn from other narrations, his Fatiha is sufficient for the whole congregation, and it suffices them all. So the short answer is that in the Hanafi position, you don't recite Fatiha at all in congregational prayer while you're behind the Imam. Ji.
I'm finding it hard finding a marriage partner and find the process awkward. What can I do?
I'm finding it hard to find a marriage partner, and I'm finding the process awkward. What can I do? It's difficult to give a general answer, depends on your circumstances. Normally, in our tradition, we would achieve this through family. We find this in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ as well, where recommendations have been made to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet has been offered and has been proposed to. This is part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So if you have family and friends who can assist you in this regard, then this is an appropriate way of proceeding. If you happen to know of somebody who's an appropriate match for you, then it's not wrong to propose yourself. There's an appropriate way to propose. It is permissible for the proposal to come from either side. However, if you're proposing, you might choose to propose to the awliya, to the parents and guardians. So there are various contexts. It is important to be proactive in seeking a marriage partner. So you can't just sit about and hope that it will happen. If you have parents and family that will assist you in this, then you ought to get their assistance. If this is not happening because they're too laid back on this issue, then you shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it to them and to press until it happens. And this may be something which needs to be done repetitively. If this is not happening, it won't happen, and you're at an age where you can't wait any longer, you'll have to reach out through family and friends. But there is an appropriate way. The sort of approach of befriending somebody and then chatting and meeting and getting to know each other like this is not something which is in line with the Islamic approach, because of the fact that you cannot engage with somebody socially in such a way in the teachings of Islam because you're not mahram with each other, you're not married. So basically that's not the appropriate way. However, there's no harm in inquiring through contacts about somebody and then proposing in that way too. So this is just a quick short answer. I hope it's of some use, and may Allah Ta'ala make your search easy for you. Ji.
Is there anything I can read to improve my job prospects?
Is there anything I can read to improve my job prospects? Yes, lots of things you can read. But one particular one, and if you know this already, then it'll be a refresher. If you don't, then this is mentioned in the Quran in Surah An-Nuh. It's actually istighfar. Istighfar opens up the doors of rizq. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam said to his people, Istaghfiru rabbakum, seek forgiveness from your Rabb. Innahu kana ghaffara, he's very forgiving. Yursilis sama'a alaykum midrara, he'll cause the rains to fall upon you amply. Wa yubdidkum bi amwal, and he'll assist you with properties, wealth, plural, amwal. Wa banin, and children, sons. Wa yaj'al lakum jannat, and he'll make gardens for you, orchards. Wa yaj'al lakum anhara, and he will cause rivers to flow for you. There's 5 virtues of istighfar. So istighfar is a key to rizq. Istighfar is a key to rizq. And so the more you do, inshallah, the more barakah there'll be in your income. And of course, it goes without saying that your fard prayer is necessary. I'm mentioning this because if you think that istighfar without the fard prayer is going to work, the fard prayer may work more than the istighfar. One of the virtues of reading your salah 5 times a day is that Allah Azza wa Jal eases your rizq for you. Might be something which we forget. He takes responsibility for it. And this is why even in with Jumu'ah, what does Allah Ta'ala say? فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, when the salah is over, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, then spread in the earth, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, and seek the fadl in favor of Allah. The ulama say this is related to rizq. When you go out of the masjid, Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik, the dua, Allah ask of your fadl. The ulama say this is rizq. So these are all doors to rizq. Salah is a door to rizq in its own right. Ji.
How would you recommend teenagers use social media given the potential fitna?
How do I recommend teenagers use the social media given fitna? See, I don't know if the questioner is a guardian or the teenager. So assuming it's the teenager, I would say in a very limited way and with very specific friends and at very specific times of the day. And so this it's a fine balancing act. You need to have that confidence and strength and willpower. Well, let me see if this example is of, let me go through this example. Let's see if it's of benefit, inshallah. See, think of it like this. When you're online and something comes up on your screen and you are concerned that if you click, then your device, your computer is going to get infected with some virus, what are you going to do? You're going to avoid that. So you avoid opening, spam? Yeah, because you don't want your computer to get infected. Similarly, if someone is offering you some ridiculous deal online, which involves money, most youngsters are savvy enough, the vast majority, more than adults perhaps, in knowing that this is a bit dodgy. Similarly, if some stranger wants to befriend you online, you would know you're in your right sort of, if you're thinking in a sensible way, you'll know that you're just going to block that person from your phone, from your. So what about the people you do talk to? So you do have it within you. I've given a few examples already. So you don't open the spam, you don't download anything which may cause a virus to enter into your device. You don't allow your data to be shared by people when you make financial transactions. You're very careful about how you pay online because you don't want someone to take your money away. Well, similarly, your iman is an asset. So you do have it within you to resist when you want to. You need to just add that onto your list as a priority. The way I can resist talking to random people who may harm me, I have the confidence to block off people. I need to have the same confidence when it comes to my friendships as well and my social interactions. And so it's about being in the driving seat, knowing yourself where to draw the line. And of course, in your teenage years, your ibadah is very important. It's very, very important. So your daily routines, your salah, your taqwa, you need to have a lot of taqwa in your youth and in your teenage years. You need to have a consciousness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that consciousness needs to be with you. So it doesn't matter if your friends are egging you on, whatever it may be, whatever discussion it is, whatever. When you are conscious in your heart, you don't need to make a show of this, but in your heart, the beating of your heart, remember, with each beating, Allah, 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 Allah. This is why tasawwuf is so beneficial for young people. In the Naqshbandi silsila, and we're not talking about dodgy tasawwuf here, we're talking about pious ulama who have used these approaches to enhance their spiritual life. They teach you to listen to your own heartbeat, and until you can hear Allah's name from your own heart. And if this is something strange, well, hundreds of thousands achieve it. In our current day as well, there are mashayikh who teach this approach. So this is an approach. So if you can link up with somebody in a spiritual sense, then you may find that this helps you to resist temptation, whether it's in the form of social media or anything else. Ji.
I've been divorced in the past and my parents keep telling me to get married again. I'm not in a rush to get married. Is this okay?
I've been divorced in the past and my parents are rushing me to get married again.
Are asking me to get married
again. I'm not in a rush. Is this okay? It's about why we do it. When you're young, you perhaps want to get married because you're young and you want a partner. It's a natural desire. And when you get older, you may not have that desire, that urge anymore in the same way. So this is one reason why you might not be keen. Another reason might be your bad experience. You may have become very cynical of the potential of a happy relationship. But the answer is you do ought to. And ought to do it because of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of the virtue of it. There is more virtue in married life than there is in single life. And remember, in married life, the tests that you go through, whether they are emotional or financial or otherwise, are full of reward. There's a huge virtue. So this is the ideal state. The Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, if their partner passed away or there happened to be a divorce, which was not the norm, if this did happen, people quickly got married again and they liked to stay in this state. The Prophet ﷺ himself, Sayyidah Khadija radiyallahu anha passes away, Sauda radiyallahu anha is married. The Prophet marries her. She's older, she's an older lady, but she can take care, she can help the Prophet ﷺ raise the children, the girls. So there's virtue here. So the short answer is that absolutely the deen of Allah recommends marriage. It's a good state to be in and it's full of virtue. So do it for this reason. Do it for the reason that there's a reward in it. And your second experience may well be far superior to your first. And so let's suppose that it wasn't your fault, whatever happened, let's suppose it wasn't your fault. Well, in that case, inshallah, you're ready for marriage anyway, because you have the character, good character. Second, if it was your fault, there were shortcomings on your side, then you can learn those lessons and perhaps go into marriage with more wisdom. What I would say, and I think it's becoming more and more apparent, everybody who wants to get married should learn about marriage, should attend classes and courses, and so they should learn about the responsibilities in marriage, because people sometimes go into marriage and make mistakes which they might not have made had they been more aware and educated about this subject. Ji.
My spouse rarely prays and always makes excuses with their focus on the dunya. What is the best way to get them to read Quran and pray regularly?
My spouse rarely prays and makes excuses related to the?
With their focus on work.
With their focus on work. What is the best way to?
To divert their attention.
Divert their attention. Okay, so basically, there's a number of ways. I remember relating an anecdote to you in Ramadan of a gentleman who didn't used to pray. He married a lady who did used to pray. And what she would do is that she would pray in front of him. And he would see her praying. This was her da'wah. She wouldn't say much to him until eventually it rubbed off on him. This does have an impact. So this is one point. The important thing is when you do da'wah, you don't hurt the other person. You don't taunt them. The other point is though, that it is important to say it as well, verbally, but gently. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ. Allah Ta'ala said to Rasulullah, instruct your family to perform salah, وَاسْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا, and be steadfast upon this. لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا. We don't ask you for rizq and sustenance. So to gently keep saying, say it kindly, say it gently, but keep saying it. The only time we won't recommend that you say it if the other person is going to reject outright and say, no, I won't perform salah, because it's not good for their deen for them to hear this. Second. Third thing is, if you can, have a few moments in the day when you read something to each other relating to deen. And it doesn't even have to be about salah. You see, what happens is when the love of Allah increases, then automatically a person is drawn to salah. So this is the third thing. Read something together, some Islamic book, a book on seerah, a book on fadail and virtues, and inshallah that will instill love. And the fourth point here is lots of dua. Because the fastest dua to be accepted is the dua of an absent person behind someone's back. So do dua for your partner, your spouse, and Allah Ta'ala will give hidayah, inshallah. Ji.
I suffer from epilepsy and find it difficult in my salah and feel it stops me. Is there any advice?
I suffer from epilepsy and
occasionally get seizures sometime in my salah.
I occasionally get seizures sometimes in my salah. Yeah. I feel it stops me.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not clear how salah stops you because
I find it difficult controlling my salah.
Yeah. It's because see, the salah is not a cause of the epilepsy, and if you have an attack of epilepsy during your prayer, then your prayer would end at that point if you went into that state. So it's not something, and so what I would say is I hope that your manner of praying is not causing you stress. It shouldn't do. Salah should be relaxing. If you find that this is the case, this is not a fiqh ruling, but it's a recommendation based on your question. It might be of use. It is permissible, this is just a mashwara, it's not a fiqh ruling. It's permissible to perform nafil salah sitting down. So if you want to become more comfortable in your salah, you might want to perform nafil rakat sometimes sitting down in a relaxed manner until you get comfortable in salah. And so that you can become accustomed to that state, because you might be stressing yourself over your salah. Don't recite in a relaxed way. If you get stuck on a verse, you don't remember the next one, keep repeating it. If you feel unwell, then in some circumstances there is a justification for coming out of your salah. But it's not a reason that you would abandon your salah. If anything, your salah might be part of the solution. So gently try to move in this direction, and inshallah Allah will assist you, and may Allah give you shifa. Ji.
Is it permissible to straighten the beard or to put oil on it?
Is it permissible to straighten the beard or put oil on it? Yes, it is. But to go to great lengths to do this using straighteners and things like that is not something which is the sunnah, and the general appropriate condition for males in Islam is a bit of leaving yourself in a bit of a natural state. Actually, combing, something I mentioned in Ramadan as well, is ghibban. It's every other day for males, though it's permissible to comb every day if you need to do that because of the state of your hair. So it's permissible, but it's not the ideal thing. The ideal, the prime example, and the oil is absolutely no problem. The prime example is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So remember, you cannot better, and we need to have this in our hearts and minds. You cannot better the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, both in a spiritual sense and in a physical sense. The Anbiya are beautiful. The Anbiya are handsome. The Prophet ﷺ is the most handsome. And the Prophet ﷺ is handsome with his beard. And he's handsome with his beard in its natural state. So have that confidence about the way Allah Ta'ala has made you. So when you develop that sense of, particularly in today's world, it's certainly easy to talk about this. We talk about leaving things in nature as they are. We talk about things in nature as they are. Your body is part of that nature of Allah, fitrat Allah, the way He created things. So be happy with the form that Allah gave you and have confidence in it. Ji.
We're out of time for today.
Right.
But we invite people to email in more questions.
Yeah, okay, so that's us for today. That's our time up. But inshallah, by all means, continue to send in your queries and questions. And until next time, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.